I'm going to be honest with you guys. I really didn't want to do this anymore. I- I'm just... I am burned up. I don't feel like there's any more need for me to be doing this anymore. Not at this point. Not ever, actually, but... I'm not just talking about me making videos of basically me complaining about a fanfiction, which, in retrospect, all seemed like an exercise in futility rather than a earnest attempt at criticism. Because at the end of the day, it's just a fanfiction of a fanfiction. But regardless, I pulled through doing all those videos because I thought I was, providing a critical opinion that actually mattered to some. That mattered to some people to some degree. And maybe it does. I think at some point it mattered to Somber, the author of the story itself, what I had to say about these chapters, even though they were mostly negative. And I know it mattered to some people in the Fallout Equestria fan community and all that, and I am appreciative of that, don't get me wrong, but I have to be completely honest with you, I don't think I couldn't do this anymore. Again, not just making these videos, but reading the story altogether. I am done with this story. I was done with this story months prior to this. But I kept going. I kept doing it. I kept reading chapters because I thought with myself, this story is about to end. Let's pull through. It's almost done. Let's continue. Let's bulldoze our way through these last final chapters. And then a new chapter pops out, and another chapter pops out, and the ending to the story seems to get further and further away because new things are added that don't really add anything at all to the story as a whole. And we get stuck into redundant and repetitious cycles of plot points and narratives and character arcs going in circle forever and ever and ever and ever. I'll get to this latest chapter in a moment. But, so I was done with this story a long time ago, and honestly, right now I cannot even pretend I'm interested in it anymore. I'm spent. I can't follow it anymore. I cannot be interested in it anymore. I don't even care about Blackjack anymore. That's how much I fail to feel invested in the story. Maybe it's partly because I made reading the story kind of a job, because I had to decide to make a video about it every time, and that actually, the idea of turning something you previously enjoyed into a job, it's something you feel like it's a job, it's going to eventually extinguish the pleasure you felt in reading the story you thought you liked at some point. I think partly it's that, so again, partly it's my own fault. Partly. But let's face it, the writer of the story has his own fault as well. I know he's going through difficult times, and I know he wants to get this story done. And since I know he wants to get this story done, it still baffles me that he keeps finding ways and more ways to make this story much more long than it needed to be. And this chapter is a textbook example of that. I was really annoyed by what actually happened in this chapter and what it entailed in my overall assessment of the story, because it really pointed out for myself and for most people reading this, I'm assuming, what is essentially one of Somber's biggest problems while writing this story, which is a problem he always had, but it is especially evident now that he ended up doing the worst thing he could possibly do. Everything that gets done in this story, everything that gets accomplished, everything that gets written and reviewed and put on the internet for us to read. Everything. Every character that dies or does something else. Every character that does not die, only to die again. Everything that gets accomplished. Everything that Blackjack does or doesn't do. Everything that happens in the story. Everything revolves around making Blackjack miserable. Well, duh. Obviously. That's what this story has always been about, up until a certain point. But it gets especially frustrating when you notice this in the context on what happens on this chapter. And I'm going to guide you through what was essentially the biggest mistake that Somber made while writing these last few chapters. It basically can all be summarized with one name, and that name is, obviously, Glory. And I am going to assume that if you're listening to this and you read the chapter already, you already know what I'm talking about. Because, let's face it, I've been ranting about the whole Glory angle for a few videos now. Well, I've been ranting about pretty much the same things over and over again over the last few videos. That's also partially the reason why I wanted to stop doing these videos altogether. I was tired of doing this over and over again. Other than being an exercise in futility, it felt more like an exercise in redundancy. Ironically, it's almost the same kind of redundancy that I'm facing with this last chapter. With the last few chapters, to be honest. So, before I expand on what I'm about to say, I want you to remember this. You should take my opinion with a grain of salt, because at this point in time, it is clearly the opinion of someone who's simply not feeling it anymore. Someone who's not invested in the story anymore, not even when it's about to actually reach its long-awaited Valhalla, that is, its conclusion. So, if you want to hear a much more enthusiastic and a much more energetic discussion about Project Horizons, you should definitely go hearing NY's podcast discussion session that he has with another one over on his YouTube channel. Chances are you all probably heard that one already before this one, but it doesn't matter, you did the right thing. The guy has the proper amount of enthusiasm and energy to discuss about Project Horizons, because he's still in the full swing of being invested in the story, in spite of all its crippling flaws and mistakes. Me, on the other hand, I just can't. I am not anymore. I am just about done, as you know by now. So anyway, here's what goes wrong here. What everything goes wrong. Let's go back to Glory's original sacrifice, her original martyr that would allow Blackjack to go into space. Blackjack and the other two go into space to do what she has to do. And now that scene was a good scene. It was emotional, it was sad. Blackjack and Glory had their own final, last meaningful moments before Glory sacrifices herself and allegedly dies. Then we discover that she's still alive, which already cheapened the very fact that she sacrificed herself, because dying, the ultimate sacrifice, and death don't mean anything anymore if one can just come back to life, and I complain about that aplenty. So, Glory is still alive. So Blackjack goes back to Glory, and Glory is about to die. Again. So they share one other final last moment, and then she dies. This time, for good. Again, allegedly. Because for all you know, she might just pop out back alive again in the final chapter. At this rate, I don't I don't doubt it. It could happen. Because death is completely meaningless, apparently. I honestly think that was a poor decision on Somber's part. I mean, what was accomplished here? Aside from having Blackjack suffer from the same thing, from the same identical thing, all over again. What was actually accomplished? Well, you will be telling me, Glory had to be the one who would suggest Blackjack the plan of action to take care of the Soul Eater, the Eater of Soul once and for all. And to that I would respond to you, why did Glory need to be that? Why couldn't literally anyone else in this unbelievably large cast of characters have been the one who would suggest Blackjack a plan of action? We didn't really need Glory to do that. Especially since having her come back to life only to die again double cheapened, if that's even possible, double cheapened what was her own original sacrifice. So, you might be saying to me, we need the Blackjack to get into this very, very dark place in which Luna's soul took over momentarily, and then we would have to have Salm coming back, and basically Salm, of all people, by the way, forgiving her, telling her that she needs to get over herself, which is something that like a million people before her said to her already. But now it seems to work, because the story's almost over, so hey, good for everyone involved, I guess. But really, if you think about it, if you really had, and this is my constructive criticism, by the way, if you really needed for Blackjack to get her hopes up, only to get her hopes so down she would eventually retreat into herself, only to get just in shape, just in time for the final confrontation, you didn't really need to bring Glory back to life. Here's what I would have done. And again, this is just what me personally would have done. My own opinion, my own reading on things. I wouldn't have had Glory come back to life to begin with. I would have Glory die when she was supposed to be dead the first time. I wouldn't have even brought up the idea that Glory was even still alive. What I would have done was for Blackjack, when she comes back to Earth, to find someone who would tell her that they found Glory. And then I would have had Blackjack just running towards the building that all the medical ponies are, the collegiate, yes, that's how it's called, the collegiate, just even thinking of what she's doing, just flashing over there without letting the ponies who were come to tell her the news about finding Glory actually finish their sentences. So once she gets to the collegiate, I would have had Blackjack finding Glory, but not barely alive, covered in bandages, just ready to die a second time after having another tearful goodbye, which again wasn't needed because they already had one, but enough of that. I would have had Blackjack just finding Glory's body. Yeah, that's it. Glory wasn't alive. Glory was dead. Dead all along. Her original sacrifice was not cheapened, and we wouldn't have needed to repeat the whole sequence all over again, which in turn would have made this chapter far shorter. And Somber could have actually written the finale altogether. Because yes, I read the author's notes at the end of every chapter, so I know what he's up to. So, with that revelation that, Glory is ultimately dead and there is no hope for her ever coming back. By the way, I wouldn't have the bodies, or the state of the body, described in full graphic fashion. I just would have mentioned that the body is covered in a shit, to emphasize the solemnity of the moment, but also to respect the fact that she died. So at this point, I would have had Blackjack having her breakdown and Luna's soul taking over momentarily, and anything else would have gone the way it did for the remaining chapter. That's how I personally would have handled this. It would have still been a powerful emotional moment, especially when Blackjack would deal with Glory's father. I would have had someone else suggesting the plan of action. I don't know, maybe a triage or a group of very smart people, ponies. I don't know, anyone else, really. And then I would have just have Blackjack deal with this again, and then getting ready for the final battle, in which, in perfect JRPG fashion, she gets to choose the party members she has to take to face the final boss, which is more or less what happens at the very final moments of this chapter. So there you have it. This is how I would have fixed this, because as it stands now, the decision the Somber ultimately decided to go with gravely annoys me. I think it was a poor decision. The writing was redundant and repetitious at best. At worst, it ruins the original sacrifice, the original martyr. It's just... It all just boils down to more unnecessary grief, more unnecessary angst for a character who's been nothing but grieving and angst on a constant basis. It has gotten so bad that at this point everything Blackjack says, every line of her dialogue, ultimately consists of her saying, "It's all my fault, it's like I killed them, I don't deserve forgiveness, I wish smarter ponies than me were here to suggest me what to do, I wish Glory was alive, but she's dead." Angst, self-loathing, anger, eat, sleep, angst, repeat. And the cycle goes on. Forever and ever and ever and ever. Until it suddenly stops, because at some point the story has to end. So, that's my takeaway thoughts of this last chapter. That it's been out for weeks now, but I couldn't get the time, I couldn't get the will to read it for the reasons I said already at the beginning of all this. So again, take my opinion for what it is, just an opinion of a really tired person. Although, I have to say, there is something about this chapter that really amused me. Well, at some point, Boo, I'm so glad that she was not killed when she was supposed to die, all those chapters ago. Boo basically telling Blackjack that victory is not a talent. The very idea that victory is a talent is dumb. I like that because my complaining of the victory talent angle all those chapters ago was a major point of contention for me. I dare to say it was one of my more legendary rants. So, and I do know that Somber knows my opinion about it, so in a way I feel validated by this very line in this part of the story. It makes me feel like everything I've done up until this point, every videos about Project Horizons, hadn't just been completely pointless. They mattered in some way or the other. They mattered to Somber, the writer of the story itself. And the feeling that I managed to reach somebody with things that I have to say, no matter if they are stupid or if they are about a fanfiction of a fanfiction, which again seemed pointless to get all enraged over, but I'm actually feeling validated because of this. So yeah, thank you, Somber. Thank you for even if you didn't mean to direct that line at me specifically, I will still take it, and I will thank you for that. Okay, once again I bulldozed myself through another chapter of the story. And now there is only one final chapter left and an epilogue. And it almost feels unreal that this story is about to end. And well, we'll see what happens when we get there. I don't know if I'll be able to... when I'll be able to get to it, so to speak. I'm so tired. Okay, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, the next time I'll get to discuss a PH chapter, I'll be doing it in one of NY's podcasts. Yes, I'd like that. I'd like to exchange opinions with fellow readers of this mastodon of a story. Well, he knows that I asked him to be on board that podcast, so it's all up to him. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. I am not being in the best shape for this, but hopefully you still enjoyed my lack of energy. Jeez. Oh, I feel like the Spoony one when he comments on wrestling. There is sadness and depression all around. Fun times. Anyway, have a nice day.